the power strip on?
I'll use my, the power strip is on. The lights on. Alright, well, I'll talk loud. I'm not going to be very long. So, I do have this lovely poster. I don't know if you guys have seen our posters around town. This is our signature poster, thanks to Pat Creed, Jan, and Cheryl. Anyway, our June events. I'm just going to quickly go over our June events because this is a big month for us. It's our kickoff to our season. And it's also, starting next week, it's History Week here in Door County. I don't know if everybody knows that, but there's a Heritage Alliance in Door County, and all of the historical societies have events next week. So it's a big week for all of history in Door County. For us, to start off the week, we have our annual meeting up at the top of the hill. Our program is on the door reminder. That's Monday at the Viking. We moved it to the top of the hill. It's a wonderful event. So if you'd like to join us, I do have some forms here, or I do have a QR code where you could go on right online and do your reservation right online. We have fish and roasted chicken, same as what we had at the Viking. Then on Saturday is our opening day for the grounds. It's our opening day. They'll have all the buildings open. It's celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Johnson Hanson Farmhouse up at the top of the hill. Is there anybody here that hasn't been up there? Okay.
Good.
You need to visit it again. You need to visit it again because there's always a lot of additions. So. Alright, I think that's all that I have for our poster. If you have any questions about the fish club, feel free to reach out to me after we're done here. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you Carol Ash and Neil Teskie. I worked with Neil a few years ago, we're at the Viking. So anyway, I'm excited to hear what they have to talk about today. So, alright, thanks.
Thank you. Historical Society is our second interview. I did not find my Mr. Dunder's card again for the interview, but we'll be okay. It is a pleasure for me to interview Neil. I've known Neil, my family's known Neil all my life. So it's really fun. It really is to purchase for you, new lawyer kids and all that, but we're gonna just get started with some basic questions. He's a great storyteller, so I don't want to talk a lot. So we're going through some of the Historical Society. Ask Jim what's my time.
You're fine. Oh, if you need a reminder, just let me know.
Okay.
Huh?
Well, he is known in these parts as the Oracle, so he's a great storyteller. We're going to go through a few questions. First of all, when did your first family members arrive in the Green Grove?
Well, my great grandfather, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure exactly when. I know that my history goes back on the Ellison side of my family, back to 1784 in Oslo, Norway. So I'm not sure when they arrived in Door County. My great grandfather, I remember him because he was the founder of the Methodist Baptist Church up here on the northern end here, and I remember him a little bit and his wife, but they were descendants from the line of Weavers that came down that they I'm not sure exactly when they arrived in North America, but probably in the mid-1800s, I would say, that they arrived in North America.
And so did all of the generations that stayed here?
Pretty much, yeah. My grandfather, he lived in Appleport, and that's the Appleport Cemetery out there. There's a number of gravestones that have the Teskie on it. Their name used to be Teskie. Yeah, my grandfather changed it to Teskie. My dad said he thought it was more American. I'm not quite sure on that side too much. I got some records at home, but I read them off and on, I forget what's happening.
That's all right. Do you know why they moved here? Was it to start the church? The one-
No, the church, I don't know why he started the church. He just started the church, but I don't know if they did move here because of that. My grandpa Teskie, he was from Alphabet area, and they had a bunch of, where Susie has her place now, that is where the homestead used to be for the Teskies. He had a bunch of sisters and whatever, but I was never real close to any of his sisters and brothers.
Do you know, what were they, what was their occupation? Were they?
Farming, dairy farming, and logging, wood logging.
Do you remember your original home, and is it still there?
My original home, I was born Sunday Bay, and we lived it, they took me to Hillside, so that's been my hometown ever since. My original home was Cottage Street. It was a 20-by-31 building, it's still there, it's still Cottage Street. And in fact, the people that bought it, property the original, put that middle Cottage Street number. When he gave me that number, I gave it to my daughter to remind me that's where I came from. I lived there in Cottage Street, and Cottage Road, and right across the road, my grandma and grandpa Teskie, and then on below that was the dock.
Right, and that's all still there.
It's also there.
So, a little bit about, you found my history. So talk about, once you were a young man and met this young lady, or just talk about those years. So once you were old. Oh, okay. So just talk about, what you did as an occupation.
I came from, Gilstrap was a very interesting place to grow up in. It was very, it was a commercial fishing pond. There was many commercial fishermen there. My dad and my grandfather included. I would go over to the docks and watch the fishermen bringing the catches and watch them clean fish and watch the boats come in. And I got to visit, there was like 3 or 4 smokehouses over there in Hills Rock, and my brother and I would sit in the morning on the end of the dock, and we'd see where smoke was coming out, and we would go over there and get smoke fish. My grandfather had a charter boat there for bass and perch. He had a boat called the Penguin. So I used to go around to Washington Island and help him. He wanted me along because I could take most for him when he didn't want to put the worm on. So I did that, and then when I was about 10, 12, maybe 13 years old, somewhere in the area, my dad took me out to the gym, and we went up to Chambers Island and set gill nets. And I liked the fishing part that has 10 in the box in order to clear the nets, and I was so short. They're ridiculous, bigger. I love the fishing with my dad, but I didn't like, I got seasick all the time.
Oh.
I finally told my dad not to make me breakfast anymore because he was lazy. Walking across the road, going faster, I'm trying to stop and go down to the dock, and I was waiting for my dad to come down, start the engine, and the boat was moving up and down in the harbor, and I stood on the dock, and I got seasick standing in the dock.
Did you ever overcome that?
Well, I did after that. It took me a long time. It was when I was like, I graduated anyways, he said the fishing lure was going to get better, he wanted to know if I still wanted to help him. But I had it abundantly clear that I could do whatever I want, I did not have to be a commercial fisherman. When you get into that type of occupation, you have to get into it by choice, not be expected to do it, because you can't be, many people don't, it's dirty, it's cold, it's wet, and sometimes the days are too much, you know, so I started fishing with my dad, and fishing did get a lot better over the next 25, 30 years. We had, a couple of years ago, we improved 250,000 pounds of whitefish. And see, one of my friends back there, Charlie's back there, he helped harvest many of those fish, so we did it. We caught a lot of fish on our trout too.
And what did you study in college?
Sociology and psychology. I always say that I came in handy with 7 kids.
Yeah.
After the 6 little girls.
So fishing.
Yeah, I had a lot of girls.
Yeah.
One boy and 7 girls.
Yeah.
8 children,
So when did, so you fished the whole time, basically?
yeah. I've always fished, I always like growing stuff. I still grow strawberries and raspberries, sweet cherries and apples. I remember when I was small, like 10, 12 years old, somewhere in that area also, I had a little garden in Gills Rock, and I would grow my tomatoes and my beans and whatever, and I'd put them in a basket on my bicycle, and I'd run around to the cottages and sell my vegetables at the cottages in Gills Rock. So I was always I really like to grow stuff, so.
So when did, because I worked picking berries for you, really hard work. But when did that start? I mean, when you started really camping up your.
I bought the farm there in '73, and there were some berries on the farm already, and some tart cherries, and I just kept it going. Raspberries, I had raspberries, and we had tart cherries there I had about 16, 20 acres of tart cherries, and I eventually got rid of them because it was just, it wasn't a winning proposition, put it that way. So I don't have the tart cherries anymore, I just got sweet cherries, apples, and strawberries, and raspberries now. We put in, Brandon and I put in 600 tomatoes last week. And the sweet corn this year too dry.
It seems like at the time strawberries were really big.
Well, they still are. The property we own there is unique because it seems to be able, it has the sweetest and the best tasting fruit around. And I don't even have to advertise to people come from Lake Harbor, even north of Sturgeon Bay up to we get berries by us, pick their own, we pick your own also. So, and then we had like a bunch of kids there sometimes. Brad was one who took care of, I was out fishing and she'd take care of you guys picking berries. She was the task master.
She was. And she could outwork all of us. I mean, always. And she would come around in her pickup truck and throw us on the back. Because after work early, I feel like it was like 5:30.
Yeah.
Before I got out, yeah, early morning, we picked for multiple hours, we would be like, is she getting tired yet? Didn't happen, but.
We had the trampoline in the pool there when you were there?
You did when I was a little bit older, yeah. But I think I babysat you guys.
That was good drawing.
Yes, for
In
sure.
our fingers.
Yeah. And I feel that, I can't remember, was it 25 cents a quart we got paid or whatever? We got paid by the quart, but it had to pass inspection. Because if you filled it up with all just the big berries, that didn't really go. Or if you were my brother and squished all the berries. John squished all the berries.
Some people did that, but they didn't have to do it.
Right, yeah. So, anyway, I'll go back to a couple of these things. So, what part of the proximity of the large body of water, lake Michigan, played in the lives of the people in the area when you were growing up?
Well, it's always been commercial fishing here, and there was a lot more heavy fish some places still have them, but not very many anymore. So, and the commercial fishing has been like, well, it's been a vacuum well, Door County has a unique thing because it has so much shoreline and so much fish that we caught here. Originally it was lake trout and sea lion, we took on the lake trout in the late 40s, early 50s. And then the whitefish survived because they had heavier scales on them. The white trout preferred the finer scales on them. The lavers preferred the finer scales on the lake trout. So in the water for me has always been like part of me. Because anytime I had a chance to get on the water or go on and my dad bought me a little boat for him and I go around the hills rock and race the ferry. I had fun once in a while. And my dad bought me a 46 Chris Craft, which we did and got it all working again. And those projects like that were something that developed my ability to fix stuff. So because my dad, we didn't have cell phones, and so I occupied my time with doing fishing and whatever. And then when I started fishing with my dad, my wife, I did the farming and the fishing, basically.
So, talk to us about a day in the life of a fisherman. What is that?
Well, most of the time we get up in the morning and try to leave the dock at a time when we get to the nets by daybreak. And then because earlier, we get there by daybreak is the best because the wind is your enemy. So early in the morning, the wind usually lays down for a while. As soon as the land starts heating up, then the winds pick up. So we like to get there by daylight and start lifting nets. And then we lift whatever nets we have, and then we bring the fish home and clean them up and pack them in boxes and put them in the cooler in Ellison Bay right up. We used to go to the fire station there, and that's where that cooler there is still owned by us, and I have part of the ownership in that. But Harvey Olson used to buy all our fish, and we used to ship them to Harvey. So, but I enjoyed the water. I was talking to somebody earlier about when I get reach critical limit in my work schedule at home or whatever, and I want to take a break, I'll jump to the truck and go down and look at the water. The water is like my therapy, so it has a calming effect to me. I don't know why it is. I went to Arizona one time and I had to leave there. Lots of rocks and dirt. Oh, water. Water goes in the swimming pool.
And during those times, what type of fish are you catching?
Primarily whitefish, permanent whitefish and chub. We did a little bird fishing, but mostly whitefish and chubs, primarily whitefish. So.
And maybe talk a little bit about how you set nets and what that looks like and what you
I
have.
originally started out setting gill nets, and we set gill nets with just two openings on the boat, the back, the stern and the side of the boat. You put a roller out there, there's a gill net lifted, it comes in, and you pull the nets in over the roller, and it drops on the table, and you pick the fish up there, and then when you're done doing that job, the nets are about 1,000-foot boxes, or something like 1,200 foot, and they're sectioned, so we just take them apart. And when we want to set back, we turn the boat around, we throw that buoy and the anchor out, and then we throw the net over, we put them over a bar and spread them out together. And then they spread them out, and then we just grab them down where we want to go with the nets, and then they go in the water, they sit up right on the bottom of the water with the gill nets. And then when I got back from college in '71, I fished pond nets with palm nets with Mark Weaver and Jeff and Mars and my dad. We combined together, we fished palm nets. Palm nets, best way to describe it is that there's 7 stakes that are anywhere from 90 to 110 feet long. We put them into the bottom, and we make a 40 by 40 foot box out of it. And then we cabled around, and there's two funnels in it, to let the fish in, and then there's a set of what they call hearts, they go on like this, and then like that, and then there's a lead in the middle, and the fish follow that in, and follow the openings, and they end up in the pot. That was before we didn't have any winches or anything, we just pulled everything by hand. So, and there, nothing was nylon or polypropylene like it is now, it was all cotton, everything had to be tarred. And we used coal tar, we used to have to keep it up with steam jetty, and keep it covered, and then we have to tar it with coal tar, it was pretty nasty. So, and then when bonnets, we did that for quite a while, the trap nets became prevalent here in '76, I believe it was. My dad and Clayton and myself, we bought the boat for Francis and some trap nets and started fishing trap nets. Trap nets are about the same as a bonnet, except you don't have stakes involved, you just have anchors involved, and they're not all the way to the surface like the bonnet is. And then we did that, I did that until a number of years ago, and then when the zebra and the quagga was really messed up, the ecology here, the food chain here, so it messed up the fishing. So it started getting less and less and less, and eventually I got rid of the Francis and the bonnets, the cabins.
So you don't do much fishing now?
I still have 2 commercial licenses, and I still have a Gillette boat, the engine is bad, it's out of the water by hours. I still have a tremendous amount of whitefish quota here yet. Quota is what has the value to it. I still have, I think about almost 16% of the quota for northern end of the county, so, for whitefish. And for chubs, I have different for various permits, even from here, I get a permit all the way, I can fish chubs all the way down to the Illinois border.
So what does it take to get a permit? Like, what is the licensing? What do you have to do?
Well, back when I started fishing here, it was pretty easy to get a license, and, you just had a, I don't know what the fee was at the time, but I applied for a license, my dad had one, I had one. And you apply with the Department of Natural Resources, and then over the years, they, started to, every time you, a commercial fisherman that renewed a license, they retired. And now they've got to the point, I think they still have about approximately 60 licenses that are available, and about 50 or 55 or something like that are being used, I'm not sure of the number. But you have to renew those every year.
Anybody in your family taking it on after you?
No, Joe, my son Joe, he went to the Navy right out of high school, just didn't have interest in it. I mean, like I said, you won't get into the fishing unless you want to do it for, I did it to make a living, but I also did it because I liked it. My brother did it for a long time, and he fished with us for a while, and he quit, and I said, why did you quit? He says, I got into fishing for the wrong reason. I said, what was that? He said, I thought I was gonna make a lot of money. So, I got into make a living, but that wasn't my goal. My goal was to, I just wanted to fish. I worked hard. It is hard, a lot hard working, lots of hours, and, you know, you got 40 hours in by the middle of the week, you know. So, you work hard, and then you get ahead, and if you get set back, you just work a little harder. You just have to keep pushing on, because you can't get discouraged. Or we come by and blow up the nets or something, and then we fix them all up and go back at it again. My theory is always, not theory, but my motto is always that persistent and consistent. So, if you're persistent and consistent, or being prepared for the opportunity. I remember one time, I was fishing gillnets outside Ellison Bay here, and I had kept my ice fishing rig for we were fishing on the ice, under the ice, and I kept my ice fishing rig in shape. Somebody mentioned to Charlie that I was lucky. Charlie told he wasn't lucky, he was just prepared for the opportunity. So that's what happened. So I was prepared for the opportunity.
So that's another question. What is the fishing season? I mean,
The only month of trout season is now it's pretty much open year round, I think, and the whitefish season is only closed for the month of November. I was fishing one time, I gotta tell this story here. I was fishing out there one time with Charlie Ellison. I don't remember the exact year, but it was Charlie remembers either, but. What year it was exactly, but we went, we left Ellison Day here, it was Monday, and we were going to set some more nets. And he had a sleigh on with the nets, and I had a sleigh on with the jiffy auger and a jigger used for running the lines. And, we got up, said it was about 2 miles or so, and then there was this crack in the wall on the ice, and it looked really strange. And I wrote with my rules, I should, I wasn't sure, I would take the chisel and check, block it out and see if it was safe, but I didn't do that. We were in a hurry, at least I was anyway. And I went across that crack, and all of a sudden open water came up from underneath me, and the snowmobile started sinking. So my dad had told me that whatever you do in that situation, always get away from the gear or the equipment. So I got up in the snowmobile seat and I jumped as far as I could. Snowmobile tipped down and I jumped as far as I could back. Charlie told me that I looked like I shot through the air. so I landed in the ice I did a lunge, and then the ice finally held me, and I put my gloves up, put my hands up on the ice to try to freeze my hands fast so I would slide back in. Another thing my dad told me I should do. And I waited for Charlie. And I wasn't getting out. I heard Charlie walking up, and I had my head down. He told me he didn't know if I was praying or sleeping. I said I was doing both. And he pulled me back up on the ice, and he said, "Are you all right?" I said, "I'm all right, but I'm not all right." So we went home, and I got clothes changed, and Charlie came to my door, and he said, "We're going to go get the gear back, and the snowmobile back and stuff." So no, I can't go out there. He said, "You're going out there, if I have to drag out there." He said, "If you don't go out there now, we probably never go out there again." So I went out there, but I was scared of that hole. So we got out there, I had a bunch of guys out there, we threw graphics down. Set up a system where we could switch back and forth between chain jacks and cable jacks, and we hooked up the snowmobile, we pulled it back up to the surface. And the sleigh was still there, the snowmobile I didn't worry about, but I did that sleigh back, and the equipment that was out was pretty important for fishing. It's stuff that you can't just go hardware store and buy. So we got it back up to the surface and pulled up the sleigh, and my thermos was still in there. So I pulled up my thermos and tried that maybe hot to me. I had hot cup to be the soup. For myself. And the next spring, I get a letter in the mail from Glasgow, Michigan. And I have no idea what it is. And I opened it up, and it's got my snowmobile registration sticker with it.
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Well, they were in a lunch pail. An eagle lunch pail. And somehow I made it all the way across all the way to Glasgow, Michigan. And then up to the beach over, so back home and sent me the registration. So, I was taken a couple times too, but that's about the scariest one I ever had, so. Thank you, Charlie. You know, he stood up for my wedding and he pulled me on, guys.
It also had your Valentine card in it. didn't it?
Yeah. He told me that was messed up.
That's why we remember Valentine.
So, that was your worst day, you were out on a snowmobile.
Yeah.
Talk about like what it was like when a storm would come up or something like that.
Well, it's, you know, my dad, everybody always asks what kind of weather do you go out in. It's not what you go out in, it's what you get caught in. Sometimes we get caught in stuff that we weren't expecting. I mean, I've been in the lake where it was blowing. Charlie was actually one we were lifting chugs one time in January in Michigan. And we hadn't been able to get out for a long time because it was so windy. It started blowing. And I stuck my head out the window and blew. I said, "You're going to blow, come on and blow." Well, that hurt me. It started blowing. We couldn't even get out of it. Fish picked out of the nets because we had so many chugs. And coming home was just unbelievable because it was washing the trucks off the dock in San Jose. So those seas were so big out there, the only time we could see Ricky Johnson was when we were both on top of the swell. Otherwise, we were, and I did the day that the end of the Fitzgerald went down, I was taking the boat from Gills Rock to Sister Mayhap in November 10th. I did the day the Fitzgerald went down. And I was taking her time I got to Ellison Bay, or Sister Bay, it was below 70 miles an hour. So I made the corner by Yahweh's there, the back was a little bit different than it is now. And I could see three guys standing on one side, three guys standing on the other side of the back. You couldn't see the back. They were up to their knees in water. The water was all awash, and there used to be that hotel up here there. I thought for sure the waves were going to toss me right up onto the beach, but I took a kind of a guess where the opening was, and I opened it up wide open. I came in wide open, and hit the opening. And my dad told me later that I did a good job. But then we went to where JJ's is now, they used to be Annie's restaurant, and we went in there to have coffee, and that's when we heard the Fitzgerald went out. So one of many stories.
Yeah. And actually, you guys were talking a little bit about roller skating.
Oh, well.
So I think that
Well-
we're transitioning out of fishing for a little bit, talking about
Well,
Ellison Bay. and what it was
Ellison Bay, the Viking has been here forever, as far as I can remember. There used to be actually a blacksmith shop right over the parking lot, it's over here. Dory Miner was over here. Across the road here, that was Northern Resort. It was where Charlie had two scoops and sold ice cream over there. And then he also had Red Restaurant over there, Marco Polo for a while. And then across the road, before my time, they played that. Well, the Major Basin, there was a
Yep.
basketball court up there. And they also played the roller skating up there, and dances. So that was part of and that place over there was not, Virginia Johnson Feats her parents owned the place, and Clayton Johnson, they were gonna auction it off, and they went, so Clayton was trying to jack up the price of the lot, but nobody overbid it, so we ended up in the place where Virginia cried. She didn't want anything to do with the place, but I spent a lot of time over there, we used to bring our fish in there, and he had a shed in the back, in the winter time, all the guys, we used to weigh fish there.
So was that Clayton's? Is that?
It was Clayton, it was Clayton. Yeah, no, it was
Small.
it was up above, it was up above that, up above in the top, they were over the, I don't know, I've never been up there, but there was just the roller skating up there or whatever, and
You
they,
weren't a roller skater?
no, that wasn't going on when I was going up there, so.
Interesting. But the Pioneer Store?
Pioneer Store was always been there, and there used to be Will's grocery over here where the bookstore is now, so, and, again, remember that, and, the bookstore, that's always been there.
What about anything else, Rob?
Well, what's changed? The Shoreline Restaurant has been there, but it's changed hands, different shapes, and, Charlie's Smokehouse has been there for a long time, because Roy Wood was his dad, and he used to, the smoke fish place used to be right down on the ferry dock with Scandinavian gift shop is now. And boy, there's not a whole lot of changed there. There's no, the town has bought the old Beaver Hanson property there for the docks and stuff. We still got their dock there. But, they still operate fishing on there.
The ferry used to.
The ferry used to land down there too, right down where the Scandinavian gift shop is right there. That used to be the main landing for the dock there. And then every once in a while they couldn't land there, so then they would run all the way around to Raleigh's Bay, because they could land over there, because of the weather, or they would have bad weather, they could land over there. But then they put the new, harbor down in Northport, now they pretty much do that. That's almost all they ever use.
Going way back, we kind of talked about this, I don't know if you have anything to say, but what effect did the wars have on this area?
I don't remember much of that. I don't remember, my dad, was working in the shipyard when World War II broke out. And he, enlisted in the Navy, because he was a shipyard worker, he was a shipbuilder in the Navy, and he said, ships in dry dock situation. He stayed there for 2.5 years and then he came back, he got sick over there. He told me some interesting stories over there. He said, he would go out at night and he'd fish, obviously, and he'd catch fish and then he would give them to the cooks in the kitchen. And they would give him fruit cocktail and sugar, and he'd go, they'd take these jugs and they'd bury it in the sand and make wine. They buried it in the sand like a 6 straws on. The CEOs could he smelled it, didn't know where it was. So then every I guess once a week on the weekends, everybody would save their beer ration for the week, and they take their beer ration and their wine and go over to the other side and have a fish fry and drink, have a party. So he said they had 5 women in there, but they took them off because it was too much trouble. But I still got pictures of my dad holding a fish at the closet of the islands. He thought it was there. He didn't make garden duty, he just had made fish all right.
Once a fisherman.
Yeah.
That's not good. You told me earlier that you are doing fish boils now.
Right.
So, but you want to talk a little bit about fish boils and how they came about and how?
Well, being in the commercial fishing industry, living in Gills Rock, fish bowls they were commonplace. And I started I did some boils for my friends in high school and college, and off and on, and then 2009 or 2010, I was working for the Hickey Brothers Fishing, and the sandpiper restaurant, Don, the guy that was running it, he asked me if I wanted to boil fish, so I worked one summer there, helping boil fish a couple nights a week, and then I boiled fish at the Viking Grill over there for one summer, and then the next summer after that, I would boil fish at the White Girl House, so actually we boiled for 15,000 people a year there.
What?
Yeah, there 15,000 people would boil there. We boil 4 nights a week, 12 boils a week, so.
And so how many are you sitting on?
Well, you do about, when it's full boil, 150 to 200 people. I mean, not each sitting, but three sitting on that. So I do the fish boils and I do what you said, I do all the fish that I caught. I have to do it properly.
You're very spiritual.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, I don't have the story to tell. You see, one thing about me, I don't have to make up stories.
Yeah, it all happened to you.
Yeah.
So, we talked about businesses,
I talk about this church is building here. This was my church, the Trinity Lutheran Church, and I was baptized here when I was 12 years old, and I was acolyte here for many years, lighting the candles and assisting the pastor. I got married here, and what else did I do here? I can't remember. Got confirmed here, so this building has a lot of history. My history is right here in this building. So I used to sit right over there.
were you in the choir?
No, I could not carry a tune. They kicked me out of the choir. When I was trying to sing in Bethel, they asked me to do something else. I threw everybody off the back so that I had no ear for calling. So they asked me if I could just do something, read scripture or something. So they just moved me on because I threw everybody off of that.
So let's go back to, and I don't know, this might have been Mark Grant's thing, but Very Best Foods. People may not know that was.
Well, we started Very Best Foods, I can't remember when it was like in the 90s, and we built the Very Best Foods, and we served smoked fish and farmers market stuff, pies, jams, jellies, cheese, stuff like that, and fresh fish, of course, and then we had great products, but we couldn't make enough money to keep it rolling, so we shut it down. So we were in the use permits, and I will be smoking fish this year again. I went back and I have a licensed kitchen now, and I also went to Madison 4 weeks ago, and it became seafood acid certified. So, not that I needed to do that, but it's good to have that when the inspector comes. I have to put a big plaque on the door. Well, there was a lot of people there from other businesses that smoke a lot of fish that are much larger than what I was like small potatoes compared to them. And they were there to get certified too, because they started to require that acid certification, hazard analysis, critical control points. And if you don't have that certification, some places they don't, at least one person in the building has to have it. So, I'm the only person in the building, but I still have to have it.
We love.
Well, I'm with salmon and whitefish again. I'm basically going to sell at farmers markets, and I might just put some in the cooler by the road. I don't know where I'm going with this yet. I'm trying not to kill myself doing it. I gotta smoke my fish either tomorrow or Friday morning. My daughter Kira's getting married on Saturday. So, my granddaughter, excuse me, granddaughter. My daughter, Becca got married 2 years ago. I'm gonna start smoking fish for the reception.
Oh.
That's my wedding present.
Nice. So I know that when Jan talked to you, the other day, that talking about your roles as a farmer and as a fisherman, but the thing that you wanted to be known for was being a father.
Well, I did my best, and I'll be honest with you, I never denied my children anything I couldn't give them. If they needed money, if they needed advice, they didn't like me a lot, I know that. But let's put it this way, all my family, we all talk to each other, we communicate with each other to this day. Some families don't have that. So that's more important to me than anything else. They didn't like me because I made them pick rocks. They didn't pick berries. But they all learned to work. My daughter, Mary Kate, is a very successful real estate engineer. Joe went in the Navy for 9 years, and he's in the tech field. And now he's in Washington, D.C. He was in South Beach, Florida. My daughter, Betty, is a massage therapist manager at Kohler Lodge in Green Bay.
I saw her with some pictures on Facebook of fishing.
Yeah.
She had some big fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that story about that. And then my daughter, Rosie, is I'm a nurse practitioner. She's a really good nurse. And my daughter, Rachel, which I call my son, Ray, because she was a tomboy. She's the one I had to buy the deer rifle for. But anyway, she, a number of years ago, about 15 years or so, she put herself through auto tech school and became an auto technician. And she is actually the head of the service department at Russ Aero Direct in Allen. So, my daughter Karen, of course, I went through and in a car accident. And then my daughter Rebecca is ICU nurse here in Allen. So we talk back and forth. I have the house full of my kids this weekend, and it'll be for the wedding, and that's the legacy I want to leave with my family. And we Mary and Joe graduated from Gibraltar, and Frank and homeschooled the other 5 for 10 years. We're finally put her back in school at Gibraltar. She graduated from Gibraltar. So homeschooling was pretty much controversial when we started doing it. And your sister did it. And everybody told us our kids wouldn't be socialized. Little lady, they're socialized. and they wouldn't get a good education. But we enrolled them in the satellite school, and I paid for they had diplomas from Christian Liberty Academy. I think that's where we went, right? And so everybody did well. They did. I'm sure there was hard feelings with some of my kids because they didn't get involved in the activities at school. But the school didn't want us to get followed. Until they were all of a sudden, they realized they weren't getting their dollars.
But the social aspect of it, what I remember at your house too, was that there's kids there all the time. Like, you constantly had kids there.
We had 17 people stay with us one summer. It was we had the Whitners there, we had the Glasslands there, we had, I don't know, some of our nieces and our nephews were there. We just had a hall full of people. So everybody,
Because they work.
yeah.
But also, you made it a place where kids wanted to be. You guys were
Yeah, we had
always
the
so-
pool and the trampoline and,
And it was something that wasn't in the city. It was a different place to go for the summer, and some of their parents would not have them off their heads for a while. It was kind of hectic sometimes when I think people stayed there for summer. So,
It's about 10 minutes.
About 10 to.
Okay,
what?
we got 10 minutes. Tell us a couple of your best stories.
I almost, let's see, I don't play anymore.
Come on.
Oh, that's stories.
Well, actually, we talked about this too. Not only did, you guys had a lot of girls and boy, and our family did, but you guys had your house burned down too.
Well,
Just like we did.
yeah,
We talked about community.
1978, we went to watch the football game. Monday night football game, we came back home and the roof was steamy. We had a Ashley stove in there properly installed went through the wall, and the burner went to the chimney. And we had a dresser there that we kept there because the door was swinging over up the stove pipe and burned a hole in it. So we kept the dresser there, we cleaned the room and put the dresser back. Went to watch the football game, came home and it was 0 out. And my roof was steaming. I said, I gotta put more insulation in the attic. When I got to the back door, it was full of smoke and the house was on fire. I remember Mary Kay saying, what about the dogs? I said, well, they're down by the door, they're not alive. So we lost our dogs. I went in and tried to get the fire, put out the fire with the fire extinguisher, probably something you should never do, but I went and grabbed the fire extinguisher, came back out and asked me what the fire was. Fire department came, and every time they pulled the hole, the fire got bigger, and your dad was there. And I remember to this day, he said, you want water? I'll get you water. Because he had this big, he was running a septic service. Septic service. So yeah, he said, I'm going to pay, I'm going to get $10 a gallon. I said, here. He went out and got water for me. And then I remember Charlie Henderson, they were trying to break into the house, we did house, and they had this saw they were trying to get started. And Charlie just walked up to give them the door kick. His mouth open. He didn't get the saw. And then your dad, that night, he said, where have you got your records? Your paperwork. I said, well, it's up there in that room. Well, in that room, there was a back porch on the second floor that we used to sit on when we were out there, and there was a door there, of course. And we went by the ladder and we were going up there, and the fire department, oh, you can't go in there without water. So they brought a hose over there, well, it froze. Your dad took that hose, and he bent it over like a garden hose. And he took the nozzle off with his bare hand, twisted off the brass nozzle, gave it a couple taps, got the ice out of the nozzle, put it back on. Now we got water, he said. I remember that. And then the next morning, I'm sitting there on the porch out front of the house. I actually had to call fire department back in the morning because it started a fire again. And your dad comes by and he says, I had one of these once. He said, not so bad. He said, you'll get a new house. He said, when you're ready in the spring, he said, just let me know when I get in my cruise to Dr. Tobacco and come over to help you dig your basement. And he came over, Myron and Jim and Dave and maybe Camp was there at the time, maybe. I don't know, the drivers up, maybe I don't remember. But they came over and he dug my basement and all the rubble away and it was just a gift, from him for your dad. And her dad was him and I, we didn't work together, but we knew each other well. We respected each other because we worked, we really worked.
They partied well together.
Yeah, well, I remember, one hockey season, Ellison's, and I don't know who all showed up, and your dad and mother were there, and we go to parties, and I'm going to bed, all of a sudden, somebody shaking me, well, I go back to the Johnny. You're coming over here to party. So, I got up, and we went up to the, we went to party, but he was a great man, he was a great man, I respected him, and he respected me, and I knew it, so, he was fun, he was such a happy guy.
Yeah, lots of fun, it was well done. But I think one of those things we touched on a lot was when I was growing up, and all the families knew each other. And we all hung out together, we, you know, Memorial Day, Labor Day, and that sense of community, like
Right.
coming over and helping you
Right.
with the fire.
Well,
It's
then
really tight-knit.
we moved to a place, we got a place in Hills Drive, where we stayed in the fire for a month, right down here in Northport. And then they had community fish oil over here for us, for fundraiser for us, and we got gifts of money and food and clothing and whatever. And it was, you know, everybody, and we did the same thing with somebody else got in the top spot, and we gave money or whatever we could do, or help other people out, because everybody ends up in a tight spot every once in a while. Sometimes nobody's there to give you a hand, and it's nice when somebody does.
I feel like that was a resounding thing. Oh, yeah. How'd you guys meet?
Oh, boy.
He hired me.
I
Jeho, his strawberry.
Yeah, no strawberries, yeah. I met her at, I think we were racing. And then she,
It was Clayton's though, right?
yeah, they were things, yeah. And then I would go over to have dinner every once in a while, with Marco Polo, she was waitressing over there. So, and I ordered whitefish.
You're lovely, which.
Yeah. So, that's all about that. And I met her, and then we got married in 76 or 77, somewhere around there, and she had married Joe already, and I adopted him because I didn't want their father to become, I didn't want him to be part of their lives, because I didn't think part of his life, because if something would happen to Frank, he didn't have parental rights, so I told her that I'll trade him parental rights for child support, because he's not gonna send me a check anyway. So we ended up adopting her and Joe, and then we had 5 more girls.
Lots of good ideas there. All right, anything else? Wait, we're gonna take questions. Forgot about that part.
Any questions for Neil? Yeah.
What's the strangest thing that you pulled up in your neck?
Ooh, good question.
Okay, let me see. My dad got a human leg bone once.
Oh,
Over at the Manitou Islands. He brought it up in the nest, and he brought it, was laying there, by the shed, and I said, this looks like a human leg bone. And I had a guy, there was a chiropractor in my dad, who came here, and he said, yeah, this is a human leg bone. He sent me into the crime lab in Madison, and I can't remember, there was a male of a certain age and certain height, they figured. And that human leg bone, one time we got a little outboard out here. One time we was over to Pole Traffic, was Whitefish Bay. It was the end of the season, and the net, they weren't fishing whitefish anymore, we were removing the gear and pulled up under the net. And I said, oh man, there's a big log down there. And all of a sudden the log started doing this. Well, we had sturgeon in there, it was huge. Sturgeon was so big that it was, we wouldn't have been able to lift it the whole day, because it must have weighed 200-300 pounds. It was about 10 feet long. Eyeball actually about this big. And it was so old that the spines were all wore out on it. It wasn't prickly anymore. But we got it up to the boat, and we got it tangled in the nose, and we released it. Probably still out there running around. So, I don't know, that's a, I don't know, that's the I've got old, chisels, I've got lantern tops, different things that come up in the nest.
You said there was a cemetery at Appleport?
Yes, there is.
Where is that?
That is, right as you go down Raleigh's Bay. Right, as you turn on Big River Road, you turn on Raleigh's Resort, right in the left-hand side of the cemetery. And there's a lot of, we're related to a lot of ladies and cities. And there's actually 4 or 5 tombstones that say Teskie on them, because one of my grandma and grandma Teskie had a child. The first one they had, they passed away, and it was very young. His name was Anton, whatever, Frank Teskie, and that's my dad named her on. So when my dad was born, they named him Frank Anton Teskie. But that my grandma changed the name to T-E-S-K-I-E for T-S-K-A. We're actually Czechoslovakian or Bohemian.
Any other questions?
I'll just say too that Neil and Fran are our neighbors. They really are our neighbors in our, people in our neighborhood. And it was Mary Kay who sold us the land that we built our house on. And I can mush about. We just counted a blessing that they are our neighbors. They are 2 of the hardest working people we have had the privilege of knowing. They're out there all the time. And we just love it when Neil comes and swings close enough for us to hear a story or to say hello. It's just absolutely wonderful. So thank you. Yeah.
I gotta go with Brian Fish for the wedding.
There you go.
And I gotta go with Fish tonight for the white also.
Yep. That's right there.
But let's say Disney would be,
No.
I just thought when people say, why do you work so hard? I said, because that's what I think.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like work, it's actually, when I take my tractor apart, and gas, this isn't, fix it out, do it up. And somebody asked me yesterday, can you do that all yourself? I said, yeah. But it gives me a sense of satisfaction, and it also gives me, I'll lay there in bed and I say, why is that not working? I'm trying to figure out, try to figure it out why something's not working. I've had a defectively reason a lot of things over on the boat, I hear some kind of noise, what's that noise coming from? What's that doing?
It's not like you can go just get a car.
Well, they don't set boat trucks out there. So a lot of times they will involve doing some, fixing it up, keep patching it up, I'll get back to the dock.
All right, anybody else? This has been fun for me, put down everything.
No, I could be going for hours here.
That's why we gotta go back.
Yeah, we're going to.
Anyway, thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
And thank you.
Society.
Thank you, Carol.